Hey guys, welcome back to Jams and Drams. David Beebe here, and I'm joined this week by the incredible Josh Meader. How you doing, man?
Good, thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, yeah, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know you are very busy over there. You are Australian, but you're over in Switzerland at the moment. And yeah, so the Jams and Drams streams, usually it's just me sitting having a whiskey and practicing guitar. When I've got somebody on as a guest, it's a bit of a wild card, really. It's obviously we chat about what they're up to and whatnot, but also try and get into something a little bit more deeper with guitar-related stuff. But I don't know if you got like the 60-second bio, or maybe a couple of minute bio about your background and what the deal is with you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I guess I'm mainly jazz fusion guitarist from Sydney, Australia. Started playing when I was 7. Got taught by my dad, also a professional musician, guitarist, and double bass player. And yeah, he introduced me to music in general, and taught me how to listen to all the greats. And yeah, started teaching me when I was 7. This is all in Amsterdam, and I moved to Australia when I was 11. And then there I went to kind of a musical high school and then did the conservatorial jazz school. And yeah, all that. And then right when I finished, unfortunately, that's when COVID hit, so it forced me to, after all my studies and everything, was just, all I can do is sit in my room and play, unfortunately, which is not what you want at the end of the degree, that's for sure. But that enabled me to start just making videos. I also found a band that I played with, a trio, and enabled me to start working on my own music, electronic music, which we recorded in 2022 and released earlier this year. And yeah, it's been going on since then.
Yeah, I've just listening to the new album. We'll maybe talk about that in a little moment. We got someone saying that your audio is actually quite low, so I don't know if we can maybe have another crack at that whilst we're kind of chatting, if possible. But yeah, Lawrence Harrison in the chat is a big fan, and I don't know if you know Lawrence, but he's a UK bass player, also amazing jazz fusion guitar player. But says, yeah, big fan. I'll just pop that up on the screen. So yeah, so huge fan, Josh. Been watching since Pursuance. Your journey has been inspiring, beautiful playing, and music keeps shredding. But he's also said, yeah, your audio is quite low, unfortunately. So don't know if we can crank it. I'll see if I can do something my side as well. But
How's this? Is that a bit better?
that was a little bit better, but still, I think probably sounds like it does need to come up quite a lot. But yeah, I think unfortunately with
I don't think I can bump it up too much more. Unless I just speak like much louder like this.
if you maybe we'll have to yeah, just boom the voice a bit. I don't know. Sorry guys.
It's going through my phone.
Yeah.
On my input level, it definitely seems louder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
just try that.
super
I'll
weird.
keep my phone like here,
Cool.
and we'll see how that goes. Tricky. I think
Yeah,
this
no
one
worries.
might be
Okay.
an issue, especially with an on-the-road setup.
No worries. We'll make it work.
Let's
So yeah, let's. It's something that's been super fascinating watching this kind of younger generation of sort of players like straddling the kind of jazz rock kind of fusion world, and it's one of the things I'm always really interested to kind of get into a little bit. Is that sort of early journey specifically? I know you mentioned you've been playing since. Did you say 7? You picked it up.
yeah.
And if you kind of wind it back to that, to thinking of that era, if you can think that early, because that is almost into the age where before we really start having clear memories.
Yeah.
was it always what was the stylistic, were you going from the jazz route very, very early on in those kind of single
Oh
digit
no,
ages?
no, definitely not. My favorite bands at the time were like AC/DC, Deep Purple, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, just all the legends. I guess my dad kind of treated my study, which he kind of developed for me based on his own journey through music, which started back with being a rock guitarist as well. Um, and I remember going together. We used to go to the library like every couple of weeks and kind of recommend a whole bunch of CDs to check out, put them all like in our card, and then take them all home and listen to them. Still one of my strongest memories is picking up one of Ingve's albums, and my dad going, "Josh, that's the greatest guitarist there's ever been. Like, that's one of the top." And I remember my eyes lit up like, "Oh my god, I can't wait to hear this thing." And yeah, so it was a very exciting time for me. And I remember like just every day we would learn a new song together, and then in the mornings he would kind of treat that as my like technical study time, where he would teach me music theory stuff, scales, exercises, technical things, and then in the evening after school was kind of learning songs or writing songs together, that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah, such a great start. It was amazing.
So it was. So when did this is the curiosity part for me then is like when did that kind of jazz element sort of come in at what, and if you remember that, and because I reading through your bio and things and what I've know about you and I've chatted a little bit in the past, I think I'd assumed it was like there was that kind of more intense kind of jazz thing from day one, but you're saying that there was more of it was a gradual thing that sort of happened.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I really was, fell in love with jazz music until maybe I was like teenage years, maybe 14, 15. My dad definitely like showed me all that stuff, and I had like on my little iPod, I had like Kind of Blue, and probably my favorite album, jazz album then was Varela Legrand and Sylvain Luke's Summertime.
Yeah.
So that was kind of first introduction, but even around the house, it was always Joni Mitchell being played, or Keith Jarrett, or John Coltrane. My dad would go through massive phases where he would just listen to one artist and their whole discography and his favorite albums. And, so I was kind of, that stuff was in my ears, but like I said, I didn't really fall in love where I really wanted to study how to play that style until 14, 15. And right before then, it was quite a wild transition. I was super into like Pantera and Children of Bodom. So early teenage years, it was like those two were my favorite bands of all time. And then I transitioned probably through, I guess through Guthrie. He was the one that
Ha.
slowly transitioned me out of the heavy metal stuff into fusion, and then that turned me into jazz stuff. And yeah, that was kind of the trajectory. Yeah.
That's a very common thing. It was something that happened, yeah, to me as well. Was kind of via Guthrie, much later in life. But it was. I think he was a bit of a thread in terms of pulling people from the shred towards improvised fusion, and then on towards maybe jazz. Yeah, it's interesting. That's super interesting. So, so in terms of your guitar playing, then. Was there a point where, I mean, what kind of age were you when you were, I don't know, were you learning the Ingve stuff? Were you doing the Joe Satriani thing? What kind of ages were you kind of like biting into that kind of playing and technically and stuff?
I guess from when I was maybe maybe 9 or 10 is when I first was learning. He had enough technical facility to at least attempt some of them. I remember the first Satch tune I learned was Always Will Be, Always Will Be. That was a favorite, definitely. And I used to play that when we went busking as well. We had a little backing track for that, and I used to play that every week. And Ingve stuff, I never really, I think I still had quite a way to go as far as technical stuff to even attempt that, especially with like sweep picking. I think it's sort of crucial with it. And my ultimate picking also had to get to a certain point where, yeah, maybe I didn't start checking out stuff like that until I was a bit older, 15, 16. Um, and by that point, then again, like I say, kind of the jazz stuff took over too. But yeah, it's. I remember another big challenge piece for me, I guess, when I was prototiping was that Canon Rock, like instrumental thing. I remember that was like the first super technical thing where it really just forced me to accept the fact that I had to sit hours and hours of practice to be able to achieve this thing, especially when it came to the sweep picking, all those lines. Yeah. Something.
Yes, it's interesting. So yeah, and then in terms of your like your sort of fretboard knowledge and ear training, it sounds like you were getting a lot of kind of ear-based sort of training and oral stuff from what was around the house and things, in terms of just being so young with it. Do you remember the kind of pathway that you took in terms of sort of fingerboard development and kind of visualization and that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I guess it was a big catalyst for it was playing with my dad actually, but again, kind of doing duo stuff where we would do gigs together and then also bus every weekend. I think from the age of maybe 12, 13 till I was 22, 23, so solid 10 years where every weekend we'd go and play together with my sister as well, sometimes later in the afternoon, and we'd do morning stuff together where it was just all standards. So I got introduced to like all the classic tunes then, and coming from that blues rock background, I guess I realized very quickly that when we did something like All the Things You Are, just the pentatonic scales weren't cut it at all, and to change keys was just a complete mystery to me because everything was always in one box. I guess the most amount of key changes I did was something like You Really Got Me, which we did in a band, and it was like, okay, a couple key changes, but it's still just moving pentatonic boxes. But in something like All the Things You Are, and even I remember The Chicken as well. I remember hearing that, and I just had no idea what to do on this beyond just a B flat minor pentatonic scale, and that sounds terrible, adding in, I need to add more than that. So that got me curious as far as like what other notes do you use, and how do you explore that. So that's when transcribing became the main teacher, I guess, for me, where I would sit every day and transcribe one lick. That was kind of my aim, was one phrase, one line from whoever my favorite player was at the time, whether it was someone like Bareilles, Sylvan, or Coltrane, Miles, and I was really starting to get into those guys at that point, and Guthrie as well, and Shane Lane, Brett Powell, all the fusion beats too, and I guess that's probably what really kicked my fretboard knowledge into gear, and started realizing that I couldn't interpret everything, or I had to interpret everything as an interval. I remember making that discovery when I was in a science class, I think maybe when I was 13 or 14, with a Charlie Parker Omni book, which I was trying to figure out, like kind of reverse engineer, like why is he choosing those notes and why. And I remember starting like just writing the intervals of all the notes, against the chord changes, just trying to figure out what they were. I had to understand what notes were. And I remember first thinking, okay, you just have one key, and then you write all the intervals in relation to that one key. That was my first idea of how the intervals work. And halfway through, like the first couple bars, I realized, oh Jesus Christ, like everything's becoming flat this, sharp, 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 and it was obvious that at that point that every chord had to become a new one, and then base the intervals off that. And that's, I guess, when I discovered that, and then from there everything made much more sense when every new chord is a new one, which has its most important intervals, and its color tones and the guide tones and yeah, all that stuff. And then at that point, then it's just translating it onto the instrument, which definitely came pentatonics first, and then through all the different modes and chord shapes and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's that realization with the pentatonic thing where, as guitar players, it's for most people it's the first thing you learn, and then you go through this kind of journey where you realize, oh no, that won't cut it, and then you sort of circle back around after then realizing it becomes an advanced thing again. So it's like this cyclical sort of and useful. The pentatonic journey is like, yeah, you start with it, you kind of gravitate away from it, and then come back to it. It's really, especially as a blues rock guy, and then yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that's super interesting journey, because I think, given like sort of listening to your playing and being so blown away and inspired by it, it's I think part of some of my assumption was that you were doing it much more in parallel as opposed to it sort of emerging out of the rock stuff. And I think it's a common theme for, maybe it's my ear is attracted, and I just find it interesting with people's sort of journeys in the journey that I'm on, but yeah, I just find that really interesting how individuals start as a rock and a blues player and then can end up in the kind of jazz-ish adjacent or jazz world, because it's not always super easy to sort of track that route and understand. Whereas if somebody that's a great jazz guitar player, that they started very early doing that, and it's not exclusively that, but you do meet people, friends who've done that, play that way, where they were very early on, single digits or teenage years, were like playing jazz. But for people that were rock and some more blues players to get into that world, I just find that transition, it's not always easy to necessarily remember exactly how it happened either. I think it's because it can be like very, obviously is mostly an organic process, but I think there are a lot of players that throughout, as they get older, and I kind of fall into this category myself of in some ways I'm a little of wanting to move towards that or develop that. It's quite a big thing with guitar players, intermediate to advancing guitar players, wanting to become better at changes playing or jazz or fusion. How to go about that process is a real interesting thing.
Yeah, totally. And it is really tricky, because there's so much information out there now as well. It must be quite overwhelming.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I think the audio is a little bit low, but sorry guys, we tested it earlier on and it did seem to be okay, but yeah, okay. Can you hear me okay, Josh? Is that still okay? Cool.
Yeah.
So what was some of the oh,
sorry man, I just popped you in the headphones now, so hopefully I can it's less. Alright. Yeah, sorry man, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so what was some of the do you remember any of the, I mean, you mentioned all the things do you remember any other kind of tunes or standards or things that were like helped bridge that gap for you, that were real pivotal moments in a kind of like, I remember actually for one of the things for me, all the things you are was one of those tunes where I remember this kind of really crucial moment where I was able to kind of like sort of navigate sort of continuous scale exercise through it, and sort of like linking into it was a real like exciting pivotal moment where I was kind of navigating sort of chord to chord, but also aware of the keys changes, and sort of been able to sort of pin that together on the fretboard. It was real on that particular tune. But were there any other tunes that you found that were like eye-opening for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Big one was Isn't She Lovely? Which, you
Hmm.
know, a classic one that Borelli and Sylvan did. We kind of like took a lot of the songs they did on those albums and did them ourselves. So Green Dolphin Street, and, Summertime, Autumn Leaves. Yeah, all the classics, and I guess
Hmm.
yeah, something like Isn't She Lovely was definitely a massive one because with that one in particular, you don't necessarily need to change boxes or anything because it all
Hmm.
still fits in. We did it in G major, E minor, so it still fits into that key, that pentatonic zone. But to actually like play the song and outline the song within your solo, it then was about okay, which notes over which point in the progression do I have to hit, and yeah, that became. I remember when that finally clicked, and I was able to, you know, basically just outline the thirds and sevenths over each one of those chords in the
Hmm.
song, and it'll kind of get you there. Um, but yeah, definitely Isn't She Lovely? I still remember I was actually like playing with my family at my um, auntie and uncles. I think they had a party at their house with all the cousins and the family around, and we would often, you know, play at parties. And I remember sitting there, you know, improvising maybe 14, 15 over Isn't She Lovely, and then it just clicking of like, okay, yeah, I have to hit that, you know, over the B7, that D sharp, and that fits
Hmm.
back to the E minor, hit this note, and then this note. And then it was like, okay, I can now hear the song as I play, and um, I remember also jamming with one of my dad's friends who was a saxophone player, and we did a gig together without my dad once, and he asked me to do a solo without accompaniment, and my mind just completely freaked out because now I could no longer rely on just playing pentatonic scales and sounding okay. Now it's like, oh shit, I have to keep the form while I improvise, and that's a totally different thing, and it's completely you have to know what's coming up to be able to do that, and have experience with it, and know what you're doing. Um, so yeah, moments like that, I definitely remember
Hmm.
through the years.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of pivotal moments. I think when you're kind of making that sort of shift or change, as you're thinking that outlining the chords, just even just as you said, like hitting thirds and sevenths can be quite daunting to some. If someone's just blasted a pentatonic, a blues scale for their career, and then to sort of then to start intentionally hitting certain intervals or note choices. As you kind of dial up the complexity of a harmonic changes and things can be quite a daunting skill in of itself to sort of get used to. Um,
Oh
but yeah,
oh
but it's super useful, of course, and really really pivotal. Um,
mm,
yeah. Was there something that so with your technique, which is like absolutely jaw-dropping, as goes without saying, but development for that, it's probably a whole hour in itself to talk about. But I don't know. Was there anything that, sort of inspiration-wise? I mean, it's with who were the players that were kind of inspiring you, sort of technically, but also. Was there were there any sort of decisions that you made that sort of pointed you one way or another in terms of the direction you were going to go with that? So yeah, maybe to
yeah,
tackle those.
yeah, yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I think just from the beginning, I definitely was before I had any technical facility. Really, I guess I was definitely very attracted to the sound of it, and I think that's the sound of someone very virtuosic. I think I was drawn to those types of players um, kind of instantly when I started really listening to music properly. So at a certain point, like it's not even something at the beginning I didn't really think about it too much. It's just that's what I wanted to be able to do. and I guess players that had a huge impact on me as far as technique goes, definitely once again Guthrie and I'd say Sean Lane
Yeah.
as well. I think when I heard both of them, those early teenage years of just yeah, as soon as I heard it, I was like, that's what I want to be able to do one day. And in my mind, I couldn't kind of conceive that I'd ever get there, but that's what I was going to kind of aim for somehow. And I remember most of yeah, a lot of the years I was playing as a teenager, and I was often very like frustrated with my technique at the time, and I found that it just took so much work, and I guess I hadn't really quite cracked exactly how it all fit together. I at that point I was splitting everything I did technically into categories, so it was a strong everyday practice. It was split, a certain amount of ultimate picking stuff, then a certain amount of sweeping, a certain amount of economy, um, tapping maybe, but everything was separate. Um, just trying to get there and watch YouTube videos and figure out and watch players like how their wrists moved, and I try and copy it like by making the screen kind of my computer screen in front of me like a mirror, so I could copy the movements and see it from that perspective. Many years
That's interesting.
of trying to work it out. Yeah, and like that maybe when I was 21 or 22 at the Conservatorium in Sydney, very inspired by the guitarists who were older than me in the course, as well as the teachers, and there's an incredible player in Australia called James Muller, which you might have heard of.
Yeah, very, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Very much, yeah.
And
Incredible.
yeah, and he was a massive inspiration technically, I would say, because one of his students was one of the older students at the conservatorium, and he was a friend, and he would show me some exercises sometimes that James showed him, and I would kind of get second-hand info and be able to learn that way as well, and that introduced me to this technique, which I now use for everything I do really, which is this sort of, I guess it's like a reverse selective picking thing where the last note of every string is a hammer-on or a pull-off, as opposed to, I guess, what Tosin's called it, like the selective picking thing where the first note of every string is a hammer-on or a pull-off, or hammer-on in this case. I guess sometimes pull-offs too. Maybe there's different rhythmic groupings, but it's the reverse of that. So the last note of every string becomes a hammer-on or a pull-off, and I started trying those exercises, and then I'd say within a month or two, just everything slopped together, and I was able to now combine all the ultimate picking, economy, sweep, plus this, and that I guess probably forms that you've seen me use to this day. And there's still the categories that I'll practice and try and maintain every day, because I guess at the end of the day, that's what makes me kind of feel comfortable in the instrument. If I can warm up in each of those blocks and then slowly add it together with vocabulary, all that stuff. But yeah, it was that little technical concept.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So, so you're talking about like the before a string change, is that it? So like it's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess the easiest way to demonstrate would just be with like 3-note per string scale, like like where I'm going down, up, hammer, down, up, hammer, down, up, hammer.
Yeah. How do you find it sort of ties into for swing? Because one of my sort of real frustrations, biggest kind of kryptonites with any kind of sort of hybrid or legato technique is how it kind of can impact like swing rhythms and feel. I know, so I've chatted to quite a few different players about this, and I just wondered if there's any sort of things you experience or with swing picking, sort of.
And that's definitely the hardest one for this. I'd say I do make some sacrifices to the technique when it comes to it, and I think I do add in more alternate picking. Say, for example, if I do really have to hit at the end of, let's say, like an enclosure or something, I really need to hit that last note before I move on because that's where the accent is of the phrase or whatever. Then, you know, those sacrifices kind of have to be made. At the end of the day, maybe even in the swing thing at a certain tempo, you can get away with certain things. But if it's medium tempo swing thing, then everything does have to. Those accents are so important. They're the most important thing. Just having the accents in the right spot within the phrase. And I guess my way of working on it has just been to play, play different melodies, and then also just playing different solos that are very bebop, and just trying to work out how it's going to work within the vocabulary. But yeah, sometimes it's hard. There's a lick we're working on recently, which is Charlie Hunt phrase, like something like. Which is quite tricky because it has that jumps. So there, for example, I'm going down, up, pull off, and then up, down, up, hammer on. And I kind of have to do that just to make it work, even though I would really like that third to be a pick. I think just I just have to focus my energy on getting that a little bit louder. Because the lick, I just don't know how else to play that one. And it is quite a speedy lick. Like, technically, it's one that he often plays quite fast. So that's alright. But yeah, if it's going slow, then I just have to really focus on getting that accent right in that spot, even if it is with a hammer on, or at least trying to. But that's a bit of an example.
Yeah, it's. I must have been through. I think whenever you're trying to translate, I think horn lines or those kind of things onto guitar as well, it can be just idiomatically the vocabulary, and it can be challenging anyway technically. But then when you're doing it with it in a swing feel, I think there's so many things that kind of make it kind of quite an awkward process to implement on guitar. And I found myself when I've been doing, Parker heads or whatever, like trying to, I must have refingered, it sounds terrible, I must have refingered Donnelly like so many times, like sort of remapped and sort of worked on it and in different ways, and sort of how to get the different articulation or the different, which notes to pop and not, and it's such a quirky thing about the way things lay out on the guitar that it can be a real challenge to find something sort of comfortable, and
definitely. I think I've done the same. Like Donnelly's been through about 3 or 4 iterations on the fretboard for me from when I first learnt it maybe at 14, where it was all alternate picked and sounded terrible, to now where it's hopefully a little bit more smooth than what it was back then.
Yeah, I find the sort of tempos as well between, like, sort of, for me it's like sort of 190, 200 to 230 is really awkward. And then over to that, as it gets to like 250 or whatever, like, I'm not saying I can, I'm great at it, but it's like as it straightens out a little bit, it becomes then a little bit like technically like a little bit more not as awkward again. But if trying to really sort of maintain the swing feel of eighth notes around the sort of 200, 210 mark, I don't know, I just find that really quite technically, physically challenging, and especially with legato kind of thing. So I just wanted to chat to you a little bit about the album as well, and then what you're up to and over the next little while and things. So I mean, I've really very much been enjoying the album and the video singles. I think that came out. So when was it was it a year ago? Was it Ultraviolet? Was the it was about something like that. But yeah, it's absolutely jaw-dropping, that tune in particular. But how? So what's the? I mean, you've got that's the trio. Are you? are you planning on doing some more touring with that? What's the deal with like playing the original music?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're doing well. We've organised and still organising a tour for in a couple months' time, so end of September and then beginning of October. Um, yeah, and we'll be performing all the tunes there, which will be super fun. And that's going to be like a European tour. We're going to do UK, Italy, Germany, and Finland. I think that's currently the plan, which is super exciting, and I guess it's the first proper tour with the trio. Yeah, and doing all the songs from the album.
Hmm.
Very exciting.
And do you think that that's the kind of avenue, like, have you given thought to, like, where you take that next? Have you got any ideas, or like, what's in terms of further original music and stuff? Are you...
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, man. I guess it is my number one priority as far as what I want to do is just keep releasing original music and keep releasing albums, whether there's a trio one or definitely have plans to do a solo guitar album, both
Oh, nice.
acoustic one and both electric ones, and yeah, man, that is definitely the priority. So already working on, I've got quite a few demos, ideas, tune ideas for the next trio album, which I'm slowly going through and just adding to every now and then. And I'm hoping that after the tour, I think we're going to try a couple new songs as well as being the album ones, as part. So my hope is that early next year we'll be able to get in the studio and record a couple new songs too, and then hopefully by maybe summer next year have a couple of new songs ready to go to release. But like I say, it's definitely the priority. So in amongst all the other stuff that's going on, that's definitely constant. Something that I'm always constantly working on.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and you're also, I think we were chatting a little bit before as well, that you're doing the sort of the camps at the MFA in next week.
Yeah,
That's going to be cool.
yeah, it's going to be great fun. Last year it was such a highlight, so really looking forward to it again. With Jack and Tom, Marco and Martin. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's going to be good.
Yeah, nice one, fantastic. And that's like, so one, we were just, that was the thing I wanted to sort of get back to, what we're chatting with, the difference between like playing with, because that will be to track, isn't it? Like in terms of like with into backings as opposed to playing with a band. And we were sort of discussing before we got on live about the differences of how we kind of approach sort of improvising when we're playing with a band as opposed to playing with backing tracks, and it's really so it's something that I was finding that if you've got you're playing improvising to a backing track, it can be quite it's a different experience, isn't it? It's as opposed to having this sort of open highway of interacting with the band, but yeah, it's
yeah, it's a massive difference. And I guess this time at the camp, like last year we had a great band playing with everyone, which was super fun. But this year, yeah, it's just I think Tom and Martin are obviously going to do that duo thing together, and then
yeah.
me and Marco are all going to be playing to track, I think. So yeah, it is a totally different experience, and I was been practicing the last few days just trying to get everything together, like the tunes, and you almost, at least I find I sort of need kind of a plan when it comes to the solos sometimes, because if I have just thinking about like the flow of the solos and the build of it, if you don't have a real band, you really have nothing to bounce ideas off except what's on the track, which if you jammed with it a lot, you kind of know everything that's going to be there. So the interaction is so much less, so I find it's a totally different thing for me. I mean, I always tend to overplay it a little bit. It's something I always try to work on, but especially when it comes to a track, I can get really, everything can definitely be too much, and then you know, I have to really think about the build of the solo and the gradual, um, yeah, growing in intensity. Like if there's, yeah, 4 choruses, then making sure that, you know, nothing is peaking by that third one, which is actually, I mean, it's really good practice as well to be able to structure your solo and kind of go chorus by chorus. Um, and say, for example, you know, for first chorus, it's really, I'm going to be developing ideas and everything should have a melodic focus, and I shouldn't, you know, get carried away with anything technical yet, unless, you know, I really hear it and really think it'll add, but still keep the intensity down, and then second, third chorus really build from that, start, you know, adding all the stuff I know and think sounds cool, and then, you know, that last chorus kind of have your flashy things, the things that build intensity, the things that kind of really define a peak of a solo ready to go. So it is like you're like kind of planning it out beforehand, which to a certain extent you do with a real band as well. But then again, you always have so many other things that, so much more interaction from the musicians you're playing with, and, you know, can take you in directions you obviously can't think of before, which is really the beauty of improvising with real musicians, is it kind of elevates you. If you really listen to the musicians around you and they're amazing players, you always elevate each other, and yeah, that's my favorite thing when it comes to playing with people, I'd say. Just that unpredictability, not knowing where something's going to go.
Yeah, it's something that you can't really overstate, just the importance of having that interaction for, and I think sometimes when I've played and I've been improvising to a backing track, I almost feel that it's some ways it's a harder thing to kind of make something, to know that I've got this in point, this out point, and that really is it, and it's not going to change, it's not going to listen to me, it's not going to respond, and so everything that I'm going to say in that point, for better or worse, is, you know, if I'm going to completely improvise it, and with no planning whatsoever, like that is, I think it's a harder skill almost to do that, to a fixed backing than if you have something, you know, live musicians kind of supporting you, where it's not necessarily as fixed. It's a really, really tricky skill. So I totally get the, you know, if let's even just shrink it down from a jazz context to, like, let's say you got an 8-bar solo or something to do on a pod track or something, then like improvising something like that in some ways is kind of, when all you've got is that short time to say and you're going to improvise it, it's like quite a difficult skill to do that.
Yeah, definitely, because there's no room for any fat on what you play. Like,
Yeah.
it has to be as pure as possible, and any extra notes they'll stand out if there's extra ones, or if a phrase just doesn't make sense, like, you'll notice it instantly. Yeah, like I say, it has to be so refined, which is a skill in itself as well, entirely. And I guess, like, zooming out, that's what you're trying to achieve with a long form improvisation as well, where every phrase is as pure and as good as it can be within the moment. And that's definitely, like, especially the last few years, that's really been something I've been trying to work on, just trimming anything that is unnecessary within how I usually improvise, which can be tricky because part of improvising is, you know, being more in that subconscious space. Like, I find, you know, if I'm improvising at my best, it's often like I'm not thinking about what I'm playing at all, and often, like, I don't really remember what I play at all, and then I go to listen back later from a recording or whatever, and say, oh, that was cool, but I have no recollection of that I actually played that on stage. And I find that's often when the best moments happen, which, once again, that's really hard to recreate, either, you know, with a backing track, or even just by yourself, because such a big part of getting you out of the thinking headspace is actually having like an audience there. I find that's when things happen the best, because the adrenaline's up, an audience is watching, and suddenly you're in that space that you need to be, where something, it's happening or it isn't, which there's just so much risk when it comes to it, and I guess that is also the beauty of the style, improvising in general.
Yeah, it's one of the most, it's such a, improvising is such an exciting, exciting and thing to do. It's a really important thing to a lot of people, and I think that it can be sometimes like having to, there's a real like fine balance sometimes between, and just how you define it as well, but as to what improvisation is, but between planning something out and being a complete, totally blank canvas, and the sort of gradations of in between. And stylistically that can be very different as well, because it's another interesting thing about, sitting on the sort of between the jazz and rock fence, is that a lot of rock can be quite a fixed thing, but it's not exactly note for note, but the arc or the shape of a solo in a rock tune could be, like it very much a fixed thing, but it varies. But then from a jazz perspective, like it's almost like you don't want almost anything necessarily to, that's not totally true, but I think it can be, if you're taking like a classic solo, for example, a classic rock guitar solo, there are things that people are in an audience might be expecting to hear, whereas I think a jazz audience might be just aren't necessarily listening out for recreating any aspect of things that would have been on a record, like phrase by phrase. So, generally speaking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and every style has its, even if the players are improvising, they're all improvising within a vocabulary for a style, developed by the greats of that style, I guess. And of course you're going to expect to hear that when you're listening to a solo of a certain style, and even if there's they're improvising using, established phrases or established vocabulary, and each player obviously has their own unique take on each of those classic pieces of vocabulary, which is really fun in itself to analyze as well, analyze how all the greats play, similar phrases, but how they make them unique to themselves, or even concepts, like something like pentatonics, how every guitarist approaches that in a slightly different way, and even with 5 notes, they can create a whole style where you can instantly know it's them, just by the way they're interpreting that.
I just, someone's mentioned it in the chat actually, lots of comments about the audio. I do apologise again, guys. I will try and fix it in post if I can. But someone's asked if you could just chat a little bit about splitting a 4-note chord on different string sets that you've mentioned briefly. I don't know if that's, I'm not sure. I don't think I've caught that. So, what does he mean there? I'm not sure. Do you know what he means?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So it'd be something like, I think. Yeah, I apologize for the audio too. It's just because I don't have a mic, so it's either my computer mic or my phone.
No worries, man. I'll try to maybe do some editing in post to try and balance it out a little bit. But
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Splitting 4-note chords probably means like what I do sometimes in my songs. So for example, Violet has that kind of concept. I guess let's just take a chord like E flat minor 7, and just being able to split that into a few different ways. So you could either do like the lowest 2 notes and the highest 2 notes, right? Or you could go the lowest and one of the middle ones, or kind of skipping one. So that's what kind of started the tune idea for Ultraviolet, which was fitting that kind of concept within quite a silly rhythmic pattern.
Yeah, the time.
The chords are quite, they're E flat minor 9, so that's split up into two groups, the highest two voices first, and then the lowest two, and then the next chord is B major 7, and this one is lowest two notes first, then the highest two. So already when I started playing that, it was like, oh, there's something cool there that I haven't heard before, where we're kind of getting a voice leading thing, but we're using two notes at a time. The chords don't even have to be they don't have to be too sophisticated, like in this case, E flat minor 9, B major, B flat minor 7, and back to B major, and then back to E flat minor, and then I play the full chord. Obviously, this is influenced by the rhythmic concept as well, and then A flat minor 7. So, in total, the whole riff. Which is probably
Very cool.
What by splitting up chords. And I got that concept from an amazing Kurt Rosenwinkel lesson that's on YouTube, and I think he was breaking down body and soul and doing this concept with body and soul, where he would split the third. He would tie the third and the seventh, and then the third and the fifth together, and then it was playing through the whole song using that concept, and it created some beautiful chordal movements, and that I guess that stuck in my head from when I watched that. I guess I must have been early 20s when I was still studying at the conservatorium when I saw that video, even earlier than that maybe. And that was
Nice.
that. But it's a really good tool that obviously can take chords that you know very well, drop 2s or drop 3s, and bring more life into them by being able to do that. Just adding to your overall chordal vocabulary.
Yeah, nice one.
That.
Yeah, cool, thanks. Well, I think what we'll do as we're coming up on the hour, we'll kind of sort of wind down a little bit. If anyone doesn't have any other questions, just maybe fire them off. But yeah, thanks very much for chatting. I very much appreciate you taking the time out. I know you've got a lot on. And it's great to catch up. And I don't know if I think you, as you say, you'd be over here in the UK in a couple of months. So I will definitely get over to one of the dates. Manchester's just pretty close, so should be able to make that. And is that with? Yeah, man. Is that the trio? Will it be here?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. We'll be the guys. Yeah, we'll be coming over.
Exciting.
The Manchester date, I think, is 30th of September.
Something like that. Yeah, I'll put it in my calendar to remind me.
Yeah, Band on the Wall, and then we're playing 1st of October at Scott. So two super exciting gigs. I guess both pretty legendary venues. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Very exciting for us. Yeah, man. Yeah, and to bring over the guys from Australia, it's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, and well, I hope you have a great rest of the summer, and enjoying the time in Switzerland, and at the camp next week, and have it all goes really, really well. And good luck with all of the. Yeah, Lawrence asks, what shampoo and conditioner do you use in that thumbnail pic? This is the secret sauce.
That's a good question. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, thank you so much. It's been great fun, and I look forward to doing it in person, and all the best, dude. And to everyone, thanks for watching. I do apologise about the audio. I'll try and get this edited, and I'll figure it out to make sure the next one is going to be a bit better. I'm sure will be something on my end. Jake Wilson's appeared as well. It's just saying hello. Yep, good to see him, dude. Everyone's going to tune in as we're wrapping up. But I will let you go off and enjoy the rest of your Sunday, mate. And
Thank you, Ben.
yeah,
Thank you. Thanks so much for
take care,
having me.
dude.
Super fun.
Yeah,
See you, man.
and we'll catch you again soon. Bye. Okay then, guys. There's no more. Thanks so much again to Josh for joining, and yeah, we'll try and maybe do another one of these and sort the audio out at some point in the future. But I do apologise if it's a little bit too low. So a little bit shorter stream today, and I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks now. So I think the next stream will be when is it? Probably the 10th. Yeah, 10th of August, I think. Oh, that's not right. Yeah, anyway, I'll post about it. So thanks, and yeah, bye-bye.